I'm Ross Miles, welcome to the Pro Football Focus Fantasy Slam. Let's talk about the rookie quarterbacks this year. It's a draft when there's 4 main quarterbacks people are looking at and there's plenty of teams needing quarterbacks. Now I'm strongly of the opinion that Teddy Bridgewater is the number 1 guy in this class. When you look at Bridgewater, to me I see an intelligent, drop back, pocket passer with excellent footwork and great ball placement. Teddy's the kind of guy who can step up into the pocket and set his feet in the face of an oncoming rush. He can also look off defenders, and he's got a great touch pass, although sometimes his deep accuracy is a little bit of a worry. But when you look at some of the other quarterbacks that have made it in the NFL, namely people like Matt Ryan, even Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, all 3 of these guys didn't have the strongest arm when they came into the NFL. So I'm confident that Bridgewater has it to up his game and make it in the pros in that sense. Another thing that Bridgewater's getting knocked on recently is his average pro day. Now look, for me, 70 plays in a scripted pro day versus 1,200 in his college career, which one do you really want to put more weight in? For me, it's got to be his college career. People are talking about Manziel's pro day, how he wore the pads, how he had the music going, how he pumped people up. Don't get me wrong, I like Manziel, especially his personality. But for me, the pro day is not where I'm going to be ranking my quarterbacks. My ranking of quarterbacks comes from looking at the college tape. Now heading back over to Bridgewater, this is a guy who led a Louisville offense that didn't really have a running game, so they pretty much functioned how Teddy functioned. And I've already mentioned he's got excellent accuracy and excellent footwork, but his toughness is an underrated aspect of his game. Go back and look at the 2012 Rutgers game. He broke his wrist and had an ankle injury where he couldn't plant his foot, yet he led a comeback victory. People are knocking his slender frame, 214 pounds, 6'2", but that's not much different to many other, several other NFL quarterbacks. It's good enough. If you want to talk about slender frames, hence, let's have a look at Johnny Manziel. And, while we're on the subject of Manziel, don't get me wrong, Manziel's an interesting player. But for me, he's a risk taker. Some might call it an improviser, but I see him more as a risk taker who throws the ball up too often for Mike Evans. Admittedly, there are going to be players who have that kind of ability in NFL who can bail him out of trouble, and defenses are going to have to account for him on every single snap because he's such a dynamic playmaker. But there's just too many risks involved with picking a player like Manziel for my liking. If you're picking a player in the top 10 of the draft, as a new coach, which quite a lot of these teams have, you're pretty much putting your career on the line, at least your job. Another guy who's getting mentioned in the same conversation is Blake Bortles. Now, when I look at Bortles, I just see a quarterback I wish had stayed in college for another season. His biggest fault for me is he stares down receivers, especially his primary receiver when the pocket is clear. When the pocket is clear and he's got time, he just locks on and then fires it in there. And that's really not a trait I'm looking for in an NFL caliber quarterback. We've talked about how Manziel's a risk taker and how Bortles, stares people down. NFL cornerbacks are going to see this and take advantage of it. Bortles' slightly elongated wind-up isn't going to help him in this aspect either. We flip back over to Bridgewater. He's got a tight, compact release, probably some of the best mechanics in the class. And look at that, only 4 interceptions as a senior. So if I want to sum things up, I'm a little bit of a loss really why Teddy Bridgewater isn't the consensus number 1 quarterback on many DraftNix boards. I understand the dual threat thing and I understand the prototypical size thing, but for me, if you want to play it safe and also get the best quarterback in the class, it's got to be Bridgewater.